For the past 15 years, I have been an Android guy. Fun fact, I have never owned an iPhone. I have been Team Android since day one. Over those 15 years, I've used phones from Samsung, OnePlus, LG, and many more. But over the past few years, I've been all in on one brand, Google Pixel. My current daily driver is the Google Pixel 9 Pro, and anytime I grab any other phone, I immediately miss this one. But why is that? What is it about this phone and the other Pixels I've owned that keeps me locked in? First, I've always loved the designs of Google's Pixel phones. There have certainly been some misfires here and there, like the bathtub-sized display notch on the Pixel 3 XL. Seriously, Google, what were you even thinking with that? But overall, Pixels have consistently been some of the best looking phones you can get. Since the introduction of the Pixel 6 series, Google has fully adopted this camera bar design, which I personally think is a bold design statement. Not only does it look great from a purely visual standpoint, but it is also incredibly distinctive. In a crowded market where many phones look nearly identical, I can immediately tell when someone is holding a Pixel because no other phone has a design quite like this these days. The camera bar is also utilitarian because when I put my phone down on a flat surface like a table, it doesn't wobble around, unlike so many other phones out there. Man, I hate desk wobbles so much. The Pixel 9 Pro, though, has quickly become my favorite Pixel design so far, primarily because it's relatively small and manageable. I realize that a significant portion of Android fans absolutely love their large phones. In fact, some folks are probably watching this very video on a phone with a display that is pushing towards 7 inches, which is just massive. But the Pixel 9 Pro is basically the perfect size for me and is comfortable to use one-handed. This has been a complete game changer for my daily usage and has genuinely made me much more emotionally attached to the phone. It just feels right in my hand in a way that no other phone I've used has managed to achieve. But even though Google made it smaller, it's still an incredibly powerful device. In fact, if you ignore the slight battery size difference, there's pretty much no difference between this phone and the larger and more expensive Pixel 9 Pro XL. The performance you'll experience, the quality of the display, the versatility of the cameras, and everything else are pretty much identical. Simply put, there is no other Android phone on the market right now that can truly compete with what this one offers in this specific form factor. Your choice is either to get a massive phone with all the top tier specs that this one can't physically fit, or to opt for a compact phone that is forced to sacrifice a ton of important specs to get down to that smaller size. The Pixel 9 Pro is like the Goldilocks phone. It is just right. Speaking of specs, another thing that keeps me firmly locked to the Pixel ecosystem is the camera. If you follow the world of smartphones even casually, there is nothing you haven't heard 1,000 times before. Pixels are consistently among the very best devices you can get for snapping photos. One of the big reasons for this continued success is how incredibly easy Google makes it. You don't need to be a professional photographer to get great shots from a Pixel. You could just point the phone at your subject and shoot, and you will more than likely get something that looks pretty good. If not, fantastic. Granted, you could probably say that about most other flagship phones these days, but there are usually still significant sacrifices you have to be willing to make. For example, Samsung's otherwise excellent phones tend to have a noticeable amount of shutter lag, meaning there's a frustrating delay between when you press the shutter button and when the phone is actually captured. I work at Android Authority and we've tested this numerous times by pitting various phones against Samsung when capturing fast-moving subjects, and Samsung fails every time, even with the newest Galaxy S25 series phones. This is a huge problem because it can mean the difference between capturing a fleeting moment or missing it entirely. Samsung also has a tendency to push the colors in its photos way too much, creating images that are vibrant and eye-catching, but don't look quite real. Meanwhile, iPhones don't have these specific problems, but iPhones also come with what is often weaker camera hardware. If you compare the raw hardware specs of an iPhone to the specs of pretty much any similarly priced Android phone, including Pixels, it's like a night and day difference. This hardware deficiency is really holding iPhones back from their full potential. No matter how much software and advanced AI you throw at the problem, in the end, larger sensors, better quality lenses, and higher megapixel counts are just going to get you better, more detailed results. So I thought long and hard about this, and what it really comes down to is that I trust the Pixel camera. When I want to capture a precious memory with my partner, my family, my pets, or anything like that, a moment that I can never get back, I don't want to be worried or stressed about whether or not the photo is going to come out okay. I just want to point and shoot and get back to living my life. And I trust Pixels to do that more reliably than any other phone on the market. Speaking of trust, I'm hoping that by being a lot more personal and open about my takes on technology, that it will be helpful for people. If you're into that kind of content, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you'll see more of my videos in the future. This channel is brand new, so every little bit of support truly helps. The biggest thing that keeps me firmly planted in the Pixel world though, the one thing that I feel like I could never do without is the software experience. There are so many incredibly useful things my Pixel can do that other phones on the market either can't do at all or can't do nearly as well. One of those features is how it manages my phone calls for me. I don't know about you, but I genuinely hate talking on the phone. I will avoid it at all costs if I can. Pixels have multiple features that are designed to help with this, like Call Screen, for example, which has the Google Assistant act like a personal secretary and screen all of my incoming calls for me. If I get a call from a number I don't recognize, I can just let Google answer it, and I can see a live transcript of the conversation. Then I can decide if I want to transfer the call to me if it's someone I should actually talk to. Likewise, the Hold For Me feature does just what it sounds like. It waits on hold for me and then notifies me with a sound and a notification when the person on the other end of the line finally comes back. These are both incredibly practical features that either don't exist at all on other phones or exist as poor, less reliable replications. Another Pixel software feature that I couldn't imagine living without is the advanced Google Assistant voice typing in Gboard. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Gboard is available on any Android phone, and so is voice typing. But the voice typing experience on a Pixel is a whole different ballgame because it is far more accurate and intelligent. It automatically creates punctuation as I speak. It can seamlessly swap between voice typing and keyboard typing in real time, and allows for useful voice commands at any time, such as sending a message or even typing an emoji. If you're like me and you use voice typing a lot, and I mean a lot, there's simply no going back after using the Pixel's voice typing. And of course, we can't forget the major advantage that Pixels are always the very first phones to get the latest version of Android. Samsung has gotten really good about getting its monthly security patches out to its users quickly, in some cases, even beating Google to the punch. But absolutely no one can compete with Google when it comes to major Android version upgrades. Me, being a hardcore Android fan, I always want to try the newest version out as soon as it's stable and available. And the only way to do that without becoming an unpaid beta tester for another major smartphone brand is to own a Pixel. Okay, so I just spent a bunch of time talking about how much I genuinely love Pixels. But I don't want you to think for a second that I'm blind to the fact that there are a lot of things wrong with them. The processor inside modern Pixels, known as Tensor, is not great. I mean, it's certainly not bad for your everyday tasks, but it can't even compare to something like a high-end Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 series chip or even a top-tier MediaTek 9000 series chip when it comes to raw performance and efficiency. Pixels also tend to get pretty warm under heavy load and charge really slowly, especially when you compare them to high-end Samsung phones, or even more so, the incredibly fast-charging OnePlus phones. There's a lot that's not perfect with Pixels, and I fully acknowledge that. But I am totally comfortable with these problems for two main reasons. The first is that no phone is perfect. Every single device has its own set of compromises. The Galaxy S25 Ultra is better than a Pixel in a lot of ways, sure, but it's also physically massive, making it a two-handed device for many people. It's also way overpriced, and it is pretty much the same camera hardware we've seen from Samsung for the past few years. The OnePlus 13 is also a great phone in so many ways, but its camera system still isn't as good or as consistent as what a Pixel or Galaxy phone can offer. It also doesn't have ultra-wideband support for some reason, and it also only comes in one size, which is extra large. The fact that Pixels aren't perfect isn't really an issue for me, but the fact that they consistently deliver on the most important aspects that I personally care about makes them indispensable for me. The second, and perhaps more important reason I am comfortable with the deficiencies in Pixels is that I can always exit the Pixel world whenever I want. Unlike Apple, and in some ways even Samsung, Google has not locked me into its ecosystem in any meaningful way. I could decide to go out and buy a Galaxy S25 tomorrow, and almost nothing else about my digital life would need to change. My smartwatch would still connect and work just fine. All of my smart home gear would still be controllable. Sharing files between my new phone and my laptop would work just as it does now, and on and on. The second that Google does something dumb that makes me not like Pixels anymore, I can bounce without any issues. Ironically, that freedom makes me even more attached to the Pixel world because I don't feel like I'm trapped there. But I really want to know what you think. Are you a diehard Pixel fan who never wants to leave the Pixel world? Are you with another phone brand right now but are thinking of making the jump over to a Pixel? Jump down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. I love chatting with my viewers, so if you take the time to write something, the chances are very high that I'll respond. And if this is your first time on my channel, why not check out this video here that explains a little bit more about who I am and what kind of content you can expect from me going forward. Of course, I would also greatly appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can stay in touch. Either way, I'll see you all down in the comments.